the amount of people that have asked me if I want to fight her and do the Brock Lesnar Frank Mir trilogy, but in daughter form. I'm like, man, if Dana ever, I know Dana would 100% promote that if Maya was fighting. So yeah, if Maya Lesnar, if you're ever hearing this, you should train, and we could just like have a little fight because that would be awesome. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that?
She is one of the top prospects in combat sports, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. She just has too many jobs, but she's about to fight coming up in just a couple weeks in Fury, and she just came off a big win in UFC BJJ. It is my great pleasure to welcome in Bella Mir. Bella, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time for me. I really appreciate it. Obviously, you're one of the busiest people in the world. Do you ever take a day off? Like ever?
Yeah, my coaches, they try to keep the training days to a limit, but it's hard to take some days off.
So obviously you got the big win, the big finish in UFC BJJ, and now you're making your return to MMA. And I know it's been a few years because obviously you went into college, you're doing wrestling. So was this always kind of just? I imagine it's always a balancing act, right? Like just finding the time to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of treat it like having seasons. You know, you have football season and baseball season, so I definitely have like wrestling season, and then over the summer is kind of like my MMA and jiu-jitsu season. So definitely always going back and forth from all three sports. But I've just been doing it my whole life, so been able to balance it all.
Yeah. So I mentioned, of course, when you came in and did MMA right away, you blast through, you get a few wins in a row, and then last year, last win was in 2022, and then you go into college and you're doing the wrestling thing. Was it just timing to get this fight coming up in July? As far as like you just had a window to actually do a fight?
Yeah. Usually, when I went to college, the agreement was, fight over the summer and then wrestle throughout the year. But my first year in college, went to Junior Worlds and was having some conflict of interest with my old coaches, with like fighting and training, other disciplines other than wrestling. So I transferred to North Central, and they absolutely loved and wanted me to fight and do jiu-jitsu and compete in the other two sports. But last year I actually was trying to get a fight. It was really hard for opponents and planning and dates and just trying to get it scheduled. So I actually was planning on having a fight last summer. I was training all summer. I went to Jiu-Jitsu Nationals and I was training, but it was hard to get an opponent. But this year, finally, things lined up, and I'm thankful for Olivia for accepting the fight.
I remember when you went to Iowa, of course, it was such a big deal. And then you transfer, like, you're literally the two colleges you've been at, the two powerhouses of women's wrestling. I'm not trying to make anyone look bad, but did that play a part? You mentioned, like, your decision to transfer, the conflict with the coaches, like, not what they didn't want you to do MMA. Was that kind of the thing?
That wasn't the main reason. The main reason was for sure my injuries and having to deal with that all year. And I feel like for me, like when I see the bigger picture, I'm like, okay, I'm not just wrestling in college for 4 years and then going and having a normal job or just wrestling senior level tournaments and internationally. Like I'm going and I'm still doing all three and as far as I can. And MMA and UFC has always like been my main goal. So that's always I need my body for that. So wrestling over there, and dealing with injuries. And, I talked to my coaches and Dana White because I have meetings with him a lot. And he kind of was just like, why don't we transfer? Let's see if you just need a different environment, or maybe it's your body. Maybe you're not meant for wrestling anymore. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty fair. So I transferred and knock on wood, never got another injury. And I was like, I think it was my environment and the training and, not every school is for every person. I mean, Iowa is a great place. So the fans, the girls, like the teammates, and the atmosphere. Iowa's great. I mean, it's Division 1 powerhouse, and but it just wasn't the place for me. And North Central is a way better fit.
And obviously, you've done so well in the NCAA tournaments. You've been in the finals, and I know that's a big goal of yours. But I also know 2028 is coming up with the Olympics in America, and every American wrestler I've talked to is like that's just such a goal because it's a once in a lifetime to actually compete in America. So would you say the 2028 Olympics, like beyond anything else, like that is just one of your biggest goals because it may be the only time you'd ever get to wrestle in the Olympics in the United States?
Oh yeah, 100%. Going to Olympic trials and making that team. I mean, I feel like you wrestle at any level. I mean, whose dream is it not to go to the Olympics and go represent America on their back and on their chest? So it's like, of course, like that is my goal. Making senior level teams and winning world medals for wrestling. That's always been my goal. I've always wanted to just be the best I could be for wrestling and have those check marks across all of my goals for wrestling. And that's definitely my main focus right now, is wrestling. Just because I feel like that'll be the first sport I retire from, just because you don't see many 40-year-olds wrestling like that you do in like jiu-jitsu and MMA. So I just really want to take advantage of my youth and take advantage of I'm in a really good spot right now, making the finals for collegiate nationals for NCAs and for the U.S. Open. I feel like I'm right there with those top girls. So, and I feel like I'm just getting better every year. I mean, my senior year in high school, I go and get sixth at World Team Trials for U20s, and I don't even know what I placed at the U.S. Open my first year in college. I think it was like sixth. Again, so it's like just the levels I've been jumping in with like my training partners and my commitment and drive for wrestling. Yeah, I feel like it's in sight.
It really sounds like the change of schools kind of reinvigorated you. Like you're healthy now, and it just sounds like wrestling is like because for it sounded like for a second there you're like maybe I have to give it up. Now it sounds like you're hard charging all the way to the Olympics in 2028.
Yeah, I mean, before I generally like when I transferred from Iowa, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna give North Central a shot because wrestling Iowa, I generally wasn't like wrestling anymore, just because of the injuries and uh, practice wasn't really fun and it just felt like more of like a job. It felt like I was just like going to work every day, and I never wanted like wrestling or MMA or jiu-jitsu or anything to feel that way. And that was just like my personal preference and my opinion. So when I transferred to North Central, I'm like, maybe this is just college wrestling. Maybe it's just not for me. And I went over and the atmosphere and how we play handball every day before practice and our camaraderie with the girls, like I genuinely love wrestling again. And yeah, I genuinely was in that mindset where I was like, I'm gonna go give North Central a shot. And if college wrestling is not for me, like I'm just gonna just go to UNLV and just get my degree. So I finish what I started when it comes to like my academics and like my schooling. But then I'm just gonna just fight and do BJJ.
Yeah. Now I remember years ago when Henry Cejudo went over and won gold as a very young man and then he started dabbling in MMA and then he tried to go back and do wrestling the next Olympics and he ended up not making he ended up I think he lost in the finals of the trials and obviously didn't go back. And a big part of that, I remember talking to Henry about it, a big part of that is you just have to dedicate so much time to wrestling because like while you're dabbling in this or dabbling in that, everyone else is just grinding, seemingly like 10 hours a day on the wrestling. So can I imagine like over these next few years, like wrestling is gonna take priority? Like you are gonna do this fight. Obviously, you just did the BJJ match, but is wrestling kind of gonna be your priority until 2028 in terms of like if you're gonna rank them?
Oh yeah, 100%. Wrestling's my priority right now. I just, when there's no tournaments coming up, like my next event is until October 20th to the 26th in Serbia for U23 World. So I'm like, I'm gonna take advantage of all this time and I'm just gonna compete in as much jiu-jitsu and MMA as I can and train and spar as much as I can. And then obviously I still train wrestling. I'm still I'm still doing freestyle just because I don't want to lose that for October and obviously my goals for 2028. But yeah, no, definitely wrestling is for sure my number one spot as of right now, just because uh, I feel like when I'm older, I'm not going to want to wrestle anymore because wrestling's so hard on your body. But yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be in like your peak athletic prime when 2028 gets here. I mean, it's like perfect time. Like, I know sometimes it doesn't work out that way. You see some athletes, like they have a window in wrestling where it's like they're a little too young, so they miss a team. And then 4 years later, that's a long time to pass. When you get to 2028, you're literally going to be like your athletic prime right then. So it's kind of perfect timing.
Oh yeah, I definitely think 2028 is like the best year, honestly, just because one, I feel like just every single year how I've like, and I don't even need like someone to tell me, or like I need to like see how like at my skill level, just like my placement at tournaments and uh people I'm beating and that I used to not beat, like how I'm just every single year, how I'm just inching closer to 2028. And yeah, I definitely think in a few years from now, I feel like I'm going to be even higher levels than I am right now. And I definitely think I'm going to be stronger, faster, and uh more of a professional when it comes to wrestling. And yeah, I couldn't honestly do it without my teammates and everyone that pushes me over at North Central, because their environment over there is just it's I mean, how can you not get better at wrestling?
100%. And I am certainly in no way, shape, or form trying to disrespect grappling or Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. But when you get the opportunity to do, UFC BJJ, and I know you're doing another tournament like right after that, like, is it easy for you to slip back into grappling? Because A, you've already got the wrestling, which is a huge part of it. But obviously, with your dad, like, you've been training Jiu Jitsu since you were a tiny, tiny, tiny child. So, like, is it easy to not? I know Jiu Jitsu isn't easy, but is it easy for you to just kind of slip in, do a couple of matches, do a tournament versus like obviously the amount of time and dedication you have to do for wrestling?
I wouldn't. Yeah, obviously, I know what you mean with easy, but um, jiu-jitsu was my first sport ever. I was that little tiny 3-year-old that had the little gi and that was running around the mats and not even doing jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu was my first sport, so it's a lot easier just to like come back because I feel like I'll never forget it. And I also when I'm at North Central too, I'm going to jiu-jitsu like 1 to 3 times a week, depending on like my schedule. If we have a duel or tournament, or if it's nationals, obviously I'm not going to go to jiu-jitsu that week. But I'm going to jiu-jitsu over there, and I'm going to boxing over there too, and keeping my like hands ready. So I'm always like wherever I'm at, even when I'm here, wherever I'm at, I'm making sure that I'm training my other disciplines at least like 1 to 3 times a week, just so I'm not losing any of that skill. And I feel like that's what makes me uh able to just jump back and forth, like how I'm able to just jump back in the summer and go against like a really high level brown belt for UFC BJJ 1, just because I never just stopped training for weeks and months on end. Like I'm still training, it's just obviously at a lower level than what other people are training. They're probably training like 2 3 times a day every day. But it's not like wrestling isn't going to help jiu-jitsu or MMA anyways.
100%. Now we talk about BJJ and doing the tournaments and doing the getting the thing in UFC BJJ, getting the big win over there. And now we've talked about wrestling. Obviously, you got till October for that, but now you have this fight coming up in a couple weeks. And I know the long term goal for you is fighting, but and this is kind of going back to my BJJ thing. Like we know a lot of fighters don't get into the UFC until they're much older. Like Daniel Cormier didn't start fighting until he's 31. Now I don't think you're going to wait till 31 to fight, but can I imagine like that's part of this long term plan? Is like I know your goal is to get to the UFC to fight in the UFC, but you have a little bit more time for that.
Oh yeah, I feel like after UFC BJJ 1, it's made me think a lot of like how I want my timing to be going into the UFC. Because I thought about, okay, like maybe once I'm graduated from college, maybe I start doing like UFC fights, maybe just contender series, or maybe just like prelim fights. Like maybe that could be like my contract. Me and Dana, we have like such a close relationship, and I know he's gonna advise me to what's best for me, just because I do trust him and he's been working with me for a long time. But I've thought about doing that, or I've thought about maybe waiting till 2028 if I want to fight in the UFC, and I just keep having like UFC Fight Pass fights over the summers, or just like whenever I can when it's not during wrestling season. So I've definitely like I've been going back and forth like after UFC BJJ 1, just like trying to like, figure out how I want my timing to be. But I definitely think that's like one advantage I have, is that I'm never like looking too far ahead of my life, or years on end. I'm always just kind of, yeah, I mean, I feel like having a fight now, or oh yeah, I mean, when I'm done fighting, maybe I'll take another grappling match, or maybe I'll just go back to North Central and just train for Worlds in Serbia this October. So I'm always like living in the moment, and always just like trying to have fun while I'm doing it. I love training. I absolutely love competing. The feelings after wins and the feelings after losses make you want to go back and train. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better life, honestly.
I love it. Now, I know that you mentioned you have a good relationship with Dana White. You, of course, were the first athlete, the NIL, to come in the UFC. And I've said for years, because I'm such a big wrestling guy, I always say, like, man, I wish the UFC would just invest in a guy and just, see how it goes. Like, I remember when I talked to Gable Steveson after he won the gold medal, and he's like, I want to do UFC or WWE. And he ends up doing WWE. And I was like, man, I just wish the UFC would just invest in that guy, give him like 3 years to train, and then bring him in and let him do it. Because they kind of did that with Bo Nickel a little bit. But the fact that they are investing in you and you had that relationship with Dana White, like, how much does that mean to you that they see something in you now, and you're still very young in your career. You're about to have your fourth pro fight in a couple weeks, but like the trajectory is there. Like they know they have a lot of faith that you're going to end up in the UFC, and I'm sure that means a lot to you. Plus the fact that you had that relationship with Dana White, which is, let's be honest, something a lot of athletes, they don't have that kind of relationship with a guy that's going to eventually promote them.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly couldn't be more grateful in the position I'm in, and the way the UFC supports me, and Dana, and it's like, I mean, what more could you ask for? I mean, uh, sometimes it like shooks me up when I'm just kind of like sitting there, or if I'm just like seeing like something on Instagram. It's like, man, like I'm just like so grateful, and I genuinely like couldn't have asked for like a better opportunity than having the UFC work with me and support me, and Dana and all the staff a part of UFC. And I got to shout out to Steven Techi and Claudia, because they've been trying to get me on the UFC card for a while. So and just like how they support me as well when it comes to UFC BJJ. So the whole industry when it comes to the UFC, they're awesome.
I know this is going to sound like such a big question for somebody who's still so young in your athletic career. But I heard you talking after the UFC BJJ win, and somebody was talking about, your dad wanted to win a third world title because he had 3 kids, and you said, "Don't worry, Dad, I'll get my own." So you got some swagger to you, Bella. So I'm mentioning this so I think you understand where I'm going with this. We think about these monumental people have been involved in women's MMA, and you think about Ronda, of course, you immediately think of Ronda. And I think recently I said, man, the UFC needs Kayla Harrison, and Kayla Harrison's come in and kind of stole the show, and now she's one of the biggest stars in sport. So when I say it's a big question, I know it is, but like, do you feel like when you eventually come in, you're going to be able, you're going to welcome that pressure because you're already getting a lot of attention and you're not technically in the UFC right now, but when you come in, like I feel like there is going to be an invigoration of excitement of you coming in, just like when Kayla came in, like, ooh, we can't wait to see Bellamere. Do you appreciate that, and do you welcome that? Because it seems like, I mean, you've had pressure on your shoulders literally since day one.
Yeah, I feel like being around my dad and who he is, and having to deal with that pressure my whole life. I never feel the pressure. I just live in the moments, and I absolutely love what I do. And my dad's like super good with when it comes to like mindset and like mentality. We have conversations all the time, and like he'll just like teach me about um, how he's always taught me. You're not in my shadow, you're in my legacy. Or um, you're dealing with those demons before fights. It's like, accept them. Like, why ignore them? Like, accept them and tell them that you're gonna prove them wrong. So I definitely feel like my mindset going into the UFC, when that day comes. I definitely feel like I'm not going to feel the pressure, but I definitely I appreciate that people, if they do want me to like take that spot. And um yeah, no, I definitely I love competing, and I love competing in front of people, and I definitely think the UFC is the place I want to end up at.
And I know that so much when you're young you get brought in because you are Frank Mir's daughter, right? Like that's a huge thing because you have the last name. But I know you've talked about this publicly and said that obviously you love your dad and your dad's a huge part of your career, but you are about building your own legacy. And I know this has happened with other young athletes. I just recently talked to Kenzie Morrison, who just fought in BKFC, and his dad's Tommy Morrison. And every time he gets announced, it's the son of Tommy Morrison. But he's like, I love my dad, but I want to create my own legacy. And I'm sure you've seen it, like even in your age, like Mya Lesnar. Everywhere it's
Oh
like
yeah.
she's Brock Lesnar's daughter, and it's like I get it. She's now an NCAA champion. Like she's forging her own path in her own sport. Obviously, you love your dad. He means everything. It means the world to you. But how important is it for you to create your own legacy? Because yeah, I think you've already, and I mean this with the absolute. Your dad's one of my favorite fighters, but I feel like you've already done that because now, like you've already done so many things in your athletic career. But I know that's something you've addressed. Like you do want to create your own legacy.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people that have parents that were really great, especially like my dad want to build their own legacy. But I just love being a part of his. I love that he gets to be a part of mine too in the future when he's going to be one of the best MMA coaches in the world, and I definitely believe that. So I definitely think that we just like share each other's story, and I feel like sometimes I'm just like, man, like I wish they would like create a movie or something. Like this is just so cool. You don't ever see it like actually happen in real life. Your father is two-time UFC heavyweight champ, and then you go and win all this and take that spot from him. And I think it's so cool, and I love that we share a legacy. I think, over this summer and being at UFC BJJ and all the interviews and stuff, I definitely am starting to realize, like, man, like I like being a part of his more than creating my own. Because I feel like creating my own was kind of just like my way of escaping his shadow. But now it's like, man, I feel like his like himself is like bringing me up, and it's cool to be a part of. And that's funny you say that about Mya Lesnar. The amount of people that have asked me if I want to fight her and do the Brock Lesnar Frank Mir trilogy, but in daughter form. I'm like, man, if Dana ever, I know Dana would 100% promote that if Maya was fighting. So yeah, if Mya Lesnar, if you're ever hearing this, you should train, and we could just like have a little fight, because that would be awesome. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that?
It's funny you say that because like that I didn't my mind didn't go there only because I know she's like a track person, like she's done like shot put and discus. But I mean, come on now, like if you're just playing promoter for like 5 seconds, who wouldn't want to see that, right? Like, come on now.
Yeah, I'm like, "Ma, just train for, like, a year." I mean, she's athletic, like, she'll get it down. She just trains for a year. I mean, that would be insane, honestly.
That was the fight. Like one of the fights we always wanted to see was your dad and Brock again. Like they never got to finish their trilogy, and it's like one of the great like missed opportunities in MMA history. We never got to see them finish their trilogy. So imagine the insanity of you and Maya like finishing it. Like I don't know, 3 or 4 years. How crazy would that be?
That no, that actually would be crazy. I mean, maybe the universe was kinda just they knew that her and I were gonna, finish that trilogy fight, so they didn't have, our dads finish it, because that would be awesome. I mean, I definitely I think I would be more hyped for that than anyone watching it, honestly.
That's amazing. And can I ask real quick before I get you out of here? I know, your dad has been your coach, since you were old enough to train. When you're in the gym and you're working with your dad, like is he still dad or do you set like dad daughter aside and he's just coach? Because that dynamic's different, right? Like because you are family members, but I've heard this before, like with a lot of times with husbands and wives or boyfriends and girlfriends when they're also the coach, like they're like, you have to set the relationship aside and it's just coach in the gym. So is it just coach in the gym? He's not dad in the gym?
Yeah, he definitely tries to like be more, coach in the gym, but you could tell like he'll have his dad moments. And uh just yesterday, because yesterday was sparring day, and he was like, okay, like I'm gonna sit over here while you get ready for sparring. I'm Coach Mir. I'm not your dad. Uh but so I'm just like, dad, like I'm just playing Clash of Clans right now. You don't got to do all that. But yeah, no, he we definitely try to keep it coach and student. But I think what the funniest times when it doesn't get separated and it's like dad is when I'm about to go fight and he's having to warm up, and because he's like sweating and screaming, and he's like mentally preparing that his daughter's about to go fight. That's like when I'm like, all right, dad's coming out, it's not coach anymore. But it's funny. uh Before my third fight, I got to tell you this story. Before my third fight, my mom's friend Angel was braiding my hair, and I always like have like a system when it comes to my music. Usually I like to listen at first, like Teenage Dream by Katy Perry, and I love listening to Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber. So I like being in that hype, and then I slowly will start getting into like the pump up music like Crown by Jay-Z and Sale and whatnot. And Sale came on, and he was in the bathroom right behind us, and he like screamed to the top of his lungs, like, because like he was just so nervous. Me and my mom and Angel, we all like jumped, and we're just like, my mom's like, oh, your dad's about to go in a fight right now, but I'm the one fighting, so it's just funny.
I can only imagine. I always say, like, I'd imagine, like, and you were younger, of course, but like, you always probably get more nervous for your dad's fights than you get for your own fights. And I'm sure the reverse is the same. Like, I'm sure he's way more nervous for your fights than he probably ever was for his own.
Oh, 100%, especially, like, when I cornered him the few times at Bellator and for those, like, boxing fights, when I was, in my teens, I flipped. Like, when I was younger, I obviously, I was so young, like, I wasn't realizing, like, everything that goes into a fight. So when I got older and, like, I actually, was competing all the time in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and, I had, 2 MMA fights at the time, so I'm like, "Man, like, this is, like, really scary," and then I started getting more nervous for his fights than for mine, and then, yeah, vice versa. He's the exact same way. I've never like, when he's about to fight, he's, like, calm, he's, like, you can't even tell he's nervous, he's, like, so good, like, when it comes to, like, his mentality, but the second I'm about to fight, he's sweating and he's having a shadow box 'cause, he needs to get his nerves out, by burning some energy, so it's funny to be around.
Crazy. Well, I tell you what, this fight coming up in a couple weeks. It's going to be good to have you back in MMA. But I think I've said a couple times here, I'm a big wrestling guy. So selfishly, while I want to see you in the UFC, I want to see you live that dream. I want to see you in the 2028 games because I convinced my editor to let me cover the 2024 Olympics and actually did really well on an MMA website. So like now I'm like, okay, we got to get more wrestling coverage. So selfishly, I want to see you go for those 2028 games because that is literally a once in a lifetime experience, and then you can come over and do the MMA like full time thing. I want to see you. I want to see you win gold first, though.
Oh, 100%, yeah, 100%.